Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, it's Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. I know it's February, but this is the first podcast of 2020. So let's roll with it, shall we? When we were returning from our last holiday in Vietnam, we stopped over in Singapore, and that's when I bought a new mirrorless camera. And that camera drove me crazy. For one, it wasn't anything like the Nikon DSLR that I'd been using for the last 6 years or so. And yet, at this point, several months later, I'm entirely comfortable with the camera. If you're thinking, this must be the result of some practice, then you're right. There was practice, but not as much as you'd think. If anything, it doesn't take much training to get a skill going, and you go from utterly inept to decently fluent. If you're into mastery, I can't help you, and no one can. But if fluency is your thing, then you can become relatively fluent in a shockingly short period. And it usually takes as little as 5 to 10 minutes a day. Keen to know more? Well, here's how it goes. Let's take the example of the Sony camera that I bought. As you now know, I bought it a few months ago, but for the longest time, I did what most of us do when we have a new gadget or a course. We do very little with it. I had the camera, I didn't use it, I went back to using my phone to take photos, so I made very little progress. But one morning, I decided to go from ineptitude to fluency. To get to fluency, you can't take on the entire skill, or in this case, the entire camera. Instead, you have to work on a specific subset of the problem. And in this case, the subset of the problem was the focus. Nikon and Canon have amazingly easy focus systems, and yet the focus system in Sony is extremely confusing. It's astounding, but it's confusing. I'd go out, I'd take some pictures, and almost all the pictures would be out of focus. It means I had a precise challenge. And, like all of those challenges, I knew exactly where to go. YouTube, of course. And because focus was my big box, I decided to watch 1 or 2 videos on YouTube every day. A video usually takes 5 to 10 minutes, and if you forward the video by tapping on the device, on the right-hand side, you can cut through a lot of the blah blah and the introductions. So one day I'd learn about how to use eye focus, which is one of the features of the Sony. And the cool part of YouTube is that it's all based on machine learning. Which is to say that if you were to watch even one video on Sony eye focus, it will then force feed you at least a few videos on the same topic. If you manage to click on any of those videos, you know what happens. It continues to populate your feed with a stream of the same type of videos. So I was getting loads of eye focus videos. But at this point in time, we have an objection. Don't those videos overlap? Isn't it such a waste of time? Let's get real here for a moment. You're going to spend a maximum of 5 to 10 minutes. It's not like 3 hours a day. In many cases, there is going to be overlap, and yet every person that jumps on their own YouTube channel will explain the same concept, but slightly in a different way, which in turn makes you understand and hence implement that one aspect of focus, but in a completely different manner. What's really cool is that most people tend to wander down their own path, which is to say that someone who takes on the topic of eye focus will then start meandering towards the C2 button on the camera, at which point you've got a brief understanding of the customization that you can do with the camera, but also it gives you direction towards your next topic. You started with focus and then you go, oh, what's this C2 button? So now you can watch, I don't know, 10, 20 videos on the C2 button. Let's do a little summary here. Let's get back on track and see what just happened. Number one, I bought a camera. I was completely confused. Number two, I realized that focus was the problem, and I looked up YouTube videos that tackle the topic. Number three, in doing so, I stumbled on the subject of eye focus, and I watched 2 or 24 videos on the topic. And number four, while watching those videos, one of the presenters talks about the customizable buttons, and you realize you could use C2 or C1 or any one of those buttons that are on that camera, and that gets your focus going. In a single week, sitting down for just 5 minutes at a time, delving into a single topic can get you down that rabbit hole of fluency. And if you want an analogy, it's like putting a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle together. At first, the pieces don't make any sense, so you work on the sky, or you work on the ground, or the trees, or the houses, and you can sense the pattern, but you ignore most of it while working on one portion of the puzzle. And as it fits together, haphazardly, you also start to get a clearer picture of the other elements. And just like that 1,000-piece puzzle, you don't sit down on one afternoon and try to put it all together. Instead, you work your way through it bit by bit, 5 or 10 minutes at a time. And that's how I learn. I tend to put these little 1,000-piece puzzles together bit by bit. Take, for instance, a year ago. I've been using some photography software called Adobe Lightroom, and a year ago I didn't know it at all. My friend Herman persisted. He kept trying to convince me to use it, but I was too lost in my own world. I was already using some other software for my photos, and I decided, no, forget it. But one day I decided to take on Lightroom 5 minutes at a time. I'd learn something, open up a photo, then implement the idea. And a year later, I was able to edit 800 photos of our trip to Greece, and they were ready to print before we got back to Auckland. Just putting together those tiny bits of the puzzle gets you from complete, I don't know anything, to enormous amount of fluency. No one is saying that YouTube is a complete replacement for real life. It's rarely a replacement for a course or a workshop. The workshop or course is more concentrated. In a good class or workshop, the teacher is not only good at anticipating where you need to go, but also giving you feedback on where you've gone wrong, how you can fix it. There's also the issue of complexity in a topic. If you're learning how to use a camera or how to paint watercolors, you're unlikely to run out of instructional videos. But if you were to take on a topic that's slightly more nuanced, you would end up doing a lot of research and pulling out your hair in frustration. Let's say you wanted to write articles, for instance, and you're more than aware that the first 50 or first 100 words that you write on the page, they're the most crucial because they draw the reader in. Now, how do you learn about the first 50 words? Even the best search engines would tend to quickly get tied up in knots if you're looking for something that specific. If you went even more in-depth and you wanted to improve just the first line of the article, well, that kind of detail is head-scratchingly tedious. So as we're seeing, there is a place for YouTube and these short videos and short instructional stuff, and then there is a place for a more compressed, concentrated workshop or course. And yet most of us can't travel all the time. Most of us can't make this effort to get on a course. And so YouTube becomes that salvation for you that you can handle 5 to 10 minutes at a time. On an everyday basis, I'm looking to go from being a klutz to relatively fluent at something, and usually in 5 to 10 minute increments. It's worked for me in watercolors and Photoshop, loads of software programs, and with my camera. And that's my advice. I know that a lot of us are looking towards getting to mastery, and mastery is like way down the road. We never get to mastery. But a lot of us can get to fluency and get there relatively quickly. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. Let's do a little summary. Let's say you have to learn something, anything. Well, the first place that I'd go to is YouTube. Now, if it's a big topic, there's going to be subsets of the topic. So look for a subset, any subset. In my case, it was the camera, and I was having problems with the focus. So I started with the focus. And that leads you to a whole bunch of videos that keep streaming at you, but eventually someone will say something different. And it'll be something like, oh, look at these customizable buttons. And so you go down that bunny hole or rabbit hole. And that's really what you're doing. You're going, finding the problem, finding the subset, going to the next step, and then watching all these videos. So if you're doing painting, same thing. Maybe watercolors, same thing. You get started on one thing, work through dozens of those videos, and I'm repeating myself. So you know what to do. But what's the one thing that you need to do today? The one thing is to find that subset. Because once you have that piece of the puzzle, that section of the puzzle, rather than the whole puzzle, that's when you'll get very good at it. You'll watch 6 to 8 videos on that thing. You'll get very good at it. You practice, you move to the next thing. And that's how you build up that entire puzzle. And when people ask me, how do I learn so many things? It's this kind of method. There's nothing fancy about it. But we don't want anything fancy. We just want to be effective. So that's it. Get your YouTube going and let me know how you go. Which takes us to what's happening in psychotactics land. And well, we've started in 2020 with a bang. The biggest, most dangerous course is coming up, which is the article writing course. And if you've been listening in, you'll know that there's the home study where you study by yourself at your own pace. And there is the article writing live course. And this live course is online. It's through a forum. There are no videos and nothing where you have to show up, but you have to do an assignment every single day. I look at it, I critique it. And if you do your assignment several times a day, I critique it several times a day. Essentially, it's very hands-on, almost like a workshop, almost like being in a room with me and the other participants. It starts in May and ends in July. But the registration dates for both the home study as well as the live course is in March. 21st of March is the article writing live, and 28th of March is the article writing self-study. You just have to go to psychotactics.com/awgoodies. And that stands for Article Writing Goodies. And when you do that, you get put on a waiting list, and then we'll send you a notification after doing a little back check. Because what we do is we make sure that people are qualified. Whether you're on the live course or any course, we make sure that people are qualified. Often clients say, how come we have such a great group that you put together? And this is because of the barriers, because of the qualification. And to make sure that you get in there and you get through the qualification, get to psychotactics.com/awgoodies. And as you'd expect, you'll get a whole bunch of goodies. And that way you know the quality of the instruction that's going to come up ahead. So there are only 25 copies of the self-study. Yes, we know it's digital, but we only sell 25 at a time. And there are just 20 seats on the live course because it's very intensive. It's called the toughest writing course in the world. There's a reason why you want to get rid of all that dread that you feel when you're writing and become an extremely fluent writer. In 45 minutes to an hour, you should be able to turn out magazine quality articles. So that's it. Go to psychotactics.com/awgoodies. And if you're a member of 5000 BC, then you get the notification in advance. Often the courses fill up with just the 5000 BC members. So 5000 BC just gets first preference. If you're not a member of 5000 BC, well, here's a little nudge. It's not just a place where you get first preference, but also where you can ask questions. It's like a consulting forum. You can ask questions, you get answers from me, you get answers from the group. It's not like one of these Facebook groups where you're just there by yourself all of you just students just trying to figure out things while the other person is out there doing their own thing, while the teacher or the person who starts a group is out there doing their own thing. I'm in the forum pretty much 16, 20 times a day, answering questions in great detail. 5000 BC is this place where you have to be kind, be helpful, or be gone. So it's built on a specific premise, on a specific motto, as it were, and we make sure that that goes. It's been going since 2003, so it's not something that we just started, and you'll find out for yourself. So go to 5000bc.com, and once again, once you sign up, you have to wait 21 days after registering, and that's just a cooling off period. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. It really helps to get the word out. Thanks for listening. Bye for now. Still listening? We were in Denmark a few years ago, and I went to this cafe, the Democratic Cafe. Nothing to do with politics, by the way. That's just what they named it. And they apparently make the best croissants in Denmark, in Copenhagen. And there are streams of people that show up every day. I used to be there very early in the morning, pretty much opening the bakery with them. But I asked the guy one day, how did he learn to make these croissants? And of course, I expected an answer like there was this master, this Yoda somewhere that taught him how to do this stuff. And he said, you'll never believe it. And I said, try me. And he says, YouTube. So there you go. Some of the best croissants in Copenhagen are because of YouTube. And that's what you can do as well. And that's my story for the day. Bye for now, and see you in 5000 BC land.